Hey folks, Saunders, Steve Brenner here at Walnut Grill in Settlers Ridge. As always, it's a Friday and we're talking high school football. And this week we're talking playoff high school football, the first weekend of the WPIAL postseason. A whole slew of games, and we're going to pick a bunch, but we'll get to that in a moment. First, let's talk about what got us here, what happened last week. You were at Pine Richland for the big 6A game. The Rams beat North Allegheny and got themselves a bye. What do you make of the way the Rams really dominated that game in all three phases?
Yeah, they did. It was the Cole Spencer show for sure. I mean, Pine Richland was up 14-0. They ran 4 offensive plays. They had 2 long touchdown passes. I think the difference in that game was both of their receivers, Eli Yoakum and Day, both had over 150 receiving yards. They have gone back and forth where they've both had big games, but if they're both, performing well in one night, Pine Richland's going to be tough to beat.
And then, North Allegheny, unbeaten all the way to the end, loses that game and then loses a bye.
Yeah.
That's how competitive the top of 6A has been. They'll get Ken and Mac tonight. I think we both expect North Allegheny to win that one. We're not picking it, but Pine Richland then waits again in the second round.
We knew coming into the year that these 3 teams would be the top, so one of them would have to win a game and then play either one of the other 2. So it's not a surprise. It's not a shame either that North Allegheny went undefeated the whole way and had to play a first round playoff game. But it's such is life in 6A right now.
Yeah, we'll talk about the other side of the 6A bracket in a bit when we pick the other game over there this week. In the rest of the games we picked, we both went 3-3. So you're the regular season champion at 30-14. I'm 28 and 16. It's not great. It's not bad either.
6A, if we threw those out, we'd do
2/3. Yeah, 6A was. Although you had PR right. I had Pine Richland right. You picked NA. In 5A, we both picked Penn Hills over North Hills, but the seeding probably didn't go the way I think we would have done it. Penn Hills not one of the top seeds.
Yeah.
And the game we're picking there this week is actually we don't have a 5A game.
No.
But just very quickly, we talked about the 5A teams a lot. Penn Trafford, Gateway, Peters, and McKeesport get the top 4 seeds. Penn Hills, defending state champion, on the outside looking in. They'll get lined up with McKeesport for a quarterfinal. What are your thoughts there?
You want to reward Penn Trafford for beating probably the best team in Gateway throughout the year, and you also want to reward Gateway for being probably the best team in 5A. I could make an argument maybe Moon should have been the 3 seed over Penn Hills, or maybe if Moon hadn't split the conference championship, they'd have been by themselves. But 5A shakes itself out. There's going to be no dispute on who comes out of this. So the seeding, when you really think about it, it is irrelevant. Eventually, you will have to play a Penn Trafford or a Gateway or a Penn Hills or something like that, so it'll figure itself out for sure.
In 4A, we've got a game. We didn't pick one last week, but we've got a game this week in Greensburg Salem. Blackhawk, one you picked for us, in a very interesting matchup to me. 2 teams that you never see play in the regular season, go all the way across the city. That's at Blackhawk. What do you make of this one?
Greensburg Salem is, they were 500 throughout the regular season. They're the quintessential 500 team. They've won a few games, they lose a few games, they win a few. You never really get on a roll. What's interesting about Greensburg is their crossover game was to South Fayette. So this year, their losses, 3 of their losses were South Fayette, Thomas Jefferson, and Belle Vernon, the top 3 teams in 4A. So now they get to, 4A. So now they play the 4th overall seed in Blackhawk. We're going to see what that discrepancy is like with the haves and the have-nots in 4A.
Yeah, I think Blackhawk is a good team, but I think they're a vulnerable first-round team here. Like you said, it's hard to judge Greensburg Salem. Their losses to very good teams,
right?
But also not particularly close losses to very good teams either. So you can kind of take it both ways. If they couldn't hang with those teams, can they go to Blackhawk and get an upset in the first round?
It's an hour and a half from Greensburg Salem to Blackhawk, right? It's down the turnpike, so it's an easy drive, but these kids might be leaving now to get ready for this game. It's unfortunate, the Beaver Falls traveling to Dairy is the same kind of thing. They're just
we're going to get there in a minute
and everything, but I think, I like a lot about what Blackhawk does, but I think between the 2 of us, it's because we like what one player is doing at Blackhawk.
Yeah, Marquez Watson Trent is a special player. I actually saw him down at the Pitt game on the sideline last weekend, and a player that's going to play Division I football. And, I think he's the difference maker that Greensburg Salem doesn't have an answer for.
Right.
I like Blackhawk in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Blackhawk as well. I'm going to see, Greensburg Salem is going for a milestone win tonight. They have 699 program wins. And the 4 teams with 700 program wins, Jeanette, Newcastle, Aliquippa, and Washington. So, if you can beat Greensburg Salem in that group of 700, that's pretty impressive.
In 3A, we've got the same place on the bracket here. Derry hosting Beaver Falls. I actually thought those teams were kind of right on the cusp of who was going to host this game.
Right.
A tough matchup, I think, for both teams in that it's a clash of styles. What do you see in this one?
Well, it's kind of like we just talked about. We know who the best teams in 3A are. Derry and Beaver Falls are kind of knocking on the door. They want to get into the conversation as one of the best teams. This is their chance to prove it. Beaver Falls has 2 losses this year. They beat Blackhawk, who we were just talking about. Their losses are to Central Valley and Aliquippa, as most teams do. So is Beaver Falls good enough to maybe win this game and give Central Valley a scare next week? Or is Derry good enough, when they lost to Aliquippa last year in the WPIAL finals, can they continue that success and maybe make another appearance?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is that is a long drive. Again, a very long drive. But I think Beaver Falls I really did think Beaver Falls was the 3rd best team in AAA this year, even though they were the 3rd best team in their own conference. And of course, Central Valley 1, Aliquippa 2. We actually both got that game wrong last week, but a dominant performance of the Warriors to take the top seed, and they'll be waiting the winner of this one, assuming they take care of business against Mount Pleasant. I think I like Beaver Falls on the road in an upset here.
I do too, yeah. I mean, don't count out the Derry running back Justin Huss. He had, 700 rushing yards in 2 games. He had a 300-yard performance and a 400-yard performance. He was scored on runs of, 61, 62, 94, and 49 yards all in the first half. He had 4 touchdowns on 10 carries. So, it shows that is there a discrepancy in maybe some of the competition he's playing? Will the athletes from Beaver Falls, knowing they've, played Central Valley and Aliquippa, can they stop a good running game? That's going to be the key for sure.
Yeah, I like the Beaver Falls defense. It's kind of an under-heralded unit. I mean, they don't have any big names. They don't have a player
this year, no.
That we're talking about as a future Division I player at this point. But I think they play solid overall, and I think it's a defense that you have to have speed to beat. And I'm not sure that's what Derry has right now. Dropping down to 2A, and I think it's a fascinating classification. There are good games all over the place here, and I think there's maybe half a dozen teams that feel like they could win this year. The game we're picking is we've got
New Brighton
and Apollo Ridge over here, and this is a game again. You picked all the way across the city. Last week though, we had Washington McGuffey. You got that right as the Prexies rolled to one of the top seeds. Although McGuffey, Avonworth, and Brentwood also right there. Man, what a tough draw though. Places like Burgettstown would face McGuffey in the second round. Apollo Ridge and New Brighton will face the winner of Avonworth, Southmoreland. Also, I mean, listen, Avonworth's one of the best teams, but Southmoreland is not an easy out. But let's talk about this one. Apollo Ridge, not a team we've talked about a lot this year. What do you know about the Vikings?
The Vikings, they started off the year 4-0. They were, having good thoughts about being one of these teams that would compete in 2A. Then they stumbled 3-3 to the finish line. One of those wins in the 3-3 was that forfeit win against Shadyside Academy. So, Apollo Ridge is not playing their best football right now, which, gives them a scare for this 7-10 upset in 2A for sure. And New Brighton, conversely, they also, they had a good start to the season. They tripped against Freedom, lost out on the section. Then all of a sudden they drop another one to Western Beaver, which you got to beat if you want to be one of the top teams in 2A, and all of a sudden they're behind Neshannock and Freedom in the playoff seeding, so they travel for their road game for the first round. But I still like what New Brighton's doing. The quarterback's good, the receiver's good, Frank Kona. I like what they're doing right now.
I'll take Apollo Ridge against the bus legs all the way across, and just as a homer pick from my boy Trey Tipton. But I do like Apollo Ridge at home, and there aren't that many upsets this weekend, traditionally.
Traditionally, yeah. So you like to try and find one, and I think 7-10 is usually where you can find one.
And then we'll go down to 1A, and last week we picked Jeanette Clairton. We both picked Clairton. Clairton got the win. They got one of the top seeds. This week, Jeanette, because of that loss, goes on the road to Stowe Rocks. this may be the best game in the entire WPIAL this Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as competitiveness and level combined with level of talent,
right.
There's some really good players on both these teams, and this is going to be a war.
Yeah, you look at Stowe Rocks, just looking at their schedule, they have an 80-0 win, a 68-0 win, and a 56-0 win. This team scores points. Eric Wilson is the second in the WPIAL in passing behind Cole Spencer. He throws it all over the yard. This team puts up points. They put it up quickly. This is their test. The WPIAL could have put Jeanette at West Green, maybe, have that matchup in the first round, but they chose Stowe Rocks. We never know what their mindset is or why they do it, so you react instead. But, this is going to be a hell of a matchup.
I think, to me, the big difference maker is Wilson's passing.
Yeah.
There aren't that many quarterbacks at this level that can do what he does. He can take over a game all by himself. At home, I think I like Stowe Rocks in this one, but this is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, and it's, even some of the classes up, when Aliquippa would lose to South Fayette and things like that, when you spread a team out and make them have to cover 5 receivers at a time, they don't have the safety, they don't have the cornerback depth to cover all of these receivers, and if there's a mismatch, Wilson's going to find it. So we'll see if Jeanette has the depth to be able to cover all of these receivers that Stowe Rocks is bringing out.
But Jeanette is going to be able to run the ball, and I think that's important in this game. And that's something they've been able to do most of the season. Maybe they can keep Wilson off the field. I still like Stowe Rocks.
Maybe. I'm going with Jeanette, but
okay.
That's, just because they are the second best team in 1A, this might be a bad matchup for them, but I still think they're the second best team.
All right. And where are you headed this weekend?
I'm going to the Beaver Falls Greensburg Salem game.
Blackhawk,
right. It is in Beaver Falls.
It's in Beaver Falls.
Right. We're going to see what my tax dollars do here for a game. But it is interesting. Like we talked about, Greensburg Salem's going for a milestone win. This is one of the better games in 4A, even across the landscape. It'll be very competitive, and I think it'll be one worth watching.
All right, so you'll be there. Follow along with Steve at Steve Brenner 9. All the rest of the scores, Steve's picks for the whole bracket here will be up on the website at Pittsburgh Sports Now, at PGA Sports Now on Twitter, Pittsburgh Sports Now on the internet. And we'll do this again next week with some second round and some semifinal matchups in the 4 classifications that are going to play at Heinz Field. So until then, Steve Brenner, Alan Saunders, and again, please check out our friends here at Walnut Grill in Settlers Ridge. Great food, great drinks, and still comfortable out here on the patio. I got to say, not that bad. All right, check them out, check us out, check Steve out, and have a great Friday night. Thanks for watching.